So should Christians get paid for doing what they do? I am a Christian artist, author, and music maker, and I know that this can be a really tough issue for some people. We're going to try to look at the issue objectively, and we're going to look to Scripture and see what the Bible has to say about it. Welcome to Celebration State, where we empower Christian creatives to grow in their creativity and in their love for God. So here's typically how this scenario can play out. A creative has performed a service, and now we're talking about specifically Christians who are marketing to a Christian market. So there are some amazing Christians who are marketing to secular markets, being a light and a hope in that world. That's incredible too. We're specifically talking about people who are creating art for the church and marketing that to that Christian market. It goes a little something like this when you encounter this scenario. A creative has created some sort of service or product, and a client comes along and says, I would like that service or product, but I would like it for free or at a steep discount because they are also, they say, a believer. And so you should try to bless them and give them your artistic service for free as a work unto the Lord, as part of the kingdom. Now, either that person is right or they should pay the money to the artist. So if that customer is right, it puts the creative in a really tough spot because they're going to have to figure out how to pay for their materials that it costs them to make their art. They're going to have to figure out how to cover the time that they're putting in to make their art too. Every art form requires time, so they're going to have to get a second job. They're going to have to figure out how to make ends meet. But even if that person is wrong who's coming asking for this deal, the artist is already in a tough spot because they might be insecure about the value of their artwork, or they might just be confused when someone comes up to them like that, because if you are a Christian creative, typically you want to do the right thing. So what is the right thing? Let's look at this issue more closely. Now for this discussion, I'm going to be comparing Christian creatives with someone who works at a church. Now I'm not saying that just because you have creative ability and a love for God that somehow you're automatically ordained. But what I am saying is that if you are a Christian creative marketing to a Christian audience, focusing your artistic endeavors toward that area, your goal is to encourage and instruct people toward Christ with your art form. And that purpose is not different from that of a pastor or a church secretary. Their purposes are very similar. They're trying to guide people to the Lord, to encourage them towards Christ, to dismantle the lies of the enemy. So let's talk about some facts. Pastors, on average, I found this on payscale.com, they make less than teachers. Now that should be startling to some people because teachers across the board are pretty much, it's agreed as a society that they need to be paid more. They're shaping the next generation. They're shaping these lives. But how much more so are pastors doing that? And yet they're getting paid less than even this amount that the world agrees is not enough. And let's look specifically at people who are in the Christian music industry. Automatically, they're at a disadvantage if they're trying to get their music on the radio because Christian radio is often listener supported. And that means they just physically don't have the income to pay their artists as much as a secular radio station would pay to play their songs. Not to mention the fact that ticket prices are assumed, they're expected to be lower for Christian concerts because it's an outreach. And yet these Christian artists are expected to put on these world-class shows that are on par with a secular performer, a secular artist, but they're not given the same amount of income to be able to support that. There seems to be this underlying assumption in the world that Christians who are trying to serve the Lord with their work should either be poor, or if they are trying to not be poor, that they are being somehow swindlers and they're filled with greed. But is that true? What does the Bible have to say about that? So again, comparing a Christian creative with someone who works at a church, let's look in the Old Testament and what God had to say about how the Levites should be treated. There are so many verses where God talks about taking care of the Levites. Just look at these right here. Press pause if you have to. So God made sure that these priests were taken care of, and how he did that was he said, The offerings that people are bringing in, the sacrifices, those things that they're giving to me to atone for their sins. Remember, this is before Christ's sacrifice on the cross. Those things that they're using to save themselves from their sins, which are given to me, you can eat from, you can take from. The Levites were allowed to do this. This was how God planned to take care of them, was from that sacrifice. And if we look at, here's a tricky part though, where people can get confused. Let's look at Numbers 18, where it says, you shall have no inheritance, talking to the Levites, says, you shall have no inheritance in their land, talking about the rest of the Israelites, neither shall you have any portion among them. I am your portion and your inheritance among the people of Israel. So people will look at that and say, see, they're not supposed to get paid. They're supposed to trust God for their inheritance. That's not what this is saying. They are supposed to trust God, but that came right after all this part about how they're supposed to eat from the sacrifices that are given to them. What God is saying is, you don't have to be farmers. You can just be priests and you can live among the people, and I'm going to take care of you. It's okay. I have provision for you. So people were supposed to be providing for the Levites with their sacrifices to God. That was their job to do. Now let's look at Jesus's model and what he told the disciples. And sure, he told the disciples not to bring anything with them on their journey when they went out, when he sent them out to go preach the word to everyone, preach the good news of the gospel. He told them not to bring anything on their journey, but it wasn't because he wanted them to be poor. It was because he wanted other people to take care of them. They were expected to put them up in their houses. They were expected to feed them. This was what was right to do as they were serving the people and bringing this word to them. And Jesus said the laborer deserves his wages when he was talking about this. So Jesus wasn't saying, go and serve me and you're supposed to be poor. And if you really trust me, then you'll be able to create all the loaves and fishes that I made, so it's going to be fine. He was saying, people are supposed to take care of you. The laborer deserves his wages. So let's look also at what Paul said in 1 Corinthians chapter 9. Paul was talking about how you should not muzzle an ox, don't cover up its mouth while it's treading out the grain. Don't let it not eat while it's doing the work of helping the farmer. And he talks also about the farmer, the one who is plowing. And he says that those people do their work expecting to get a share of the harvest. So if, like in America, let's say you're harvesting corn, they're bringing the harvest in and they're thinking, wow, my family's going to eat good tonight. We're going to package all this corn to sell, but I'm also going to get some of this corn for myself. So Paul says, if we have sown spiritual things among you like a farmer, is it too much if we reap material things from you? He also says in Galatians 6:6, he says, let the one who is taught the word share all good things with the one who teaches. So let's say that someone struggles with massive anxiety and they go to a ministry event where they get radically delivered from this anxiety. Now, true, the person was delivered by God, but the person who was ministering to them was the instrument of that deliverance. And how much is that going to affect the rest of that person's life that they're now free from this crippling anxiety? How much is that going to affect their job, their relationships? Every area of their life now is going to be blessed with increase because of this touch from God, that this person who was ministering to them, who was serving them in this way, was able to be a conduit of God to help them. So taking all of that scripture together, I believe that the biblical belief, the biblical assumption is that the people who are sowing spiritual things into people's lives, things of God, are infinitely valuable to people for the success of every area of their lives. And so the fruits of the success of their lives should be shared with that person who was that conduit, who was the sower of spiritual things into their lives. So here's my question for you. Has your creative work ever inspired someone? Has your song ever given someone hope to hold on to in a tough time? Has your artwork ever taught someone something about the truth of God? Well, the laborer deserves his wages. So I do believe that as an artist, it's okay to get paid. If you choose to, if you have it on your heart as an artist to give something away for free, then that's amazing and that's beautiful and you should do that. But that is up to you to decide. It's not up to the person who's coming to you as the client. It's not up to them to decide that they deserve that blessing. If they're calling themselves a Christian, how much more should they be generous and how much more should they want to bless you for sowing into their lives the things of God? If you think about it as like a Christian who owns a restaurant, if you compare an artist to that, if you go to like Chick-fil-A and you're wanting all this food, you're not going to go there and say, I want this food, but I was kind of hoping, like, I'm a believer. I know that like things are run by believers, like up at the top. So I was hoping I could get like the kingdom discount. You would never do that. You would go to Chick-fil-A to support them. You know that it costs them money to make that food. It costs them money to buy that food, to be able to make it. It costs them money to open and run that business, to even keep the lights on. So we know this when it comes to a restaurant. Why don't we know this about artists too? And you are going to encounter people who are going to either try to swindle you out of getting paid or just expect that you not get paid. And I would encourage you to have some firm boundaries and understandings of what God is calling you to sell your artwork for before you encounter situations like that. But pray as you proceed into those situations. Now, while I do think that it's wrong for them to be asking that, how you treat them should still be out of love, because you are a Christian creative, not just any kind of creative. So you are representing Christ even to those customers who don't want to pay you what you're worth. So however you proceed, you should be treating them with love. People have asked me about free paintings before, and what I tell them is that the prophecy itself is free. The word from God, it didn't come from me. You can have that. I'll just tell it to you. I'll tell you what I saw. But if you want me to paint that image out, to use my time, my resources, my creativity in that thing, if you want me to do that, that is what costs money. So I would encourage you to have that mentality also, that the love that you're giving, that the message you're giving is for free, but the service that you would be performing with your creativity is not. I have been so blessed by the comments and my interaction with you guys on these videos. You guys may not know this, but there are places in the world where this message has never been heard before. And that's what I've been experiencing in the comments, is that you might just be using these videos to supplement what you already know. And that's amazing. I hope that you can glean from my mistakes and learn what I had to learn the hard way. And if this just supplements your already blooming creative lifestyle with God, that's amazing. But there are places in the world that don't have that kind of community. They don't have spirit-filled Christians coming around them, encouraging them to pursue God, to pursue His Spirit. And so that's what this channel is for. And if you like and subscribe and comment, that actually helps us to reach more people. It helps us to go to those places in the world where people just don't have any kind of support around them. So thank you so much for doing that, you guys. And comment down below, what do you want my next video to be about? Because those comments actually strongly affect, they influence what I choose to record, if I can. Unless God tells me, like, you got to record this thing, then I got to do that. But if I can, I will go with your idea, because I want to help you, I want to empower you, and I might not know the areas that you have issues with unless you tell me. Celebration State is a YouTube channel dedicated to empowering Christian creatives to serve God with all of their heart through their creativity. Thank you so much, you guys. Be so blessed.